So I want you to imagine something. You've worked, you've genuinely worked. Personal statement in, grades came out, you've done great, you've passed the interview, and now you're starting. And within the first few weeks, you're like, what did I sign up for? And it's not because it's hard, it's because nobody told you what it actually is. In this video, you're gonna learn what pharmacy school is actually training you to become, and 3 things I would do differently if I were starting pharmacy school all over again. So here's what happened, and the reason I'm making this video. I'm heading into 3rd year, and someone was asking me, if I'm going into 1st year, what system should I have? Should I use Anki? Should I write notes by hand? Should I type them up? And I sat there and paused, because these questions, well, I did ask them in 1st year, but they don't actually matter. The system doesn't matter that much. It's how you think that matters. Today isn't a tips list, it's the picture I wish someone painted for me when I was going into pharmacy school. Plus, what to actually do with it. Pharmacy school is not a science degree, it's judgment training. I remember the first time a tutor put a scenario in front of us, and this is the first time I saw an ethical scenario that I genuinely didn't know what to do with it. There's one medication, and there's a mother, there's a prisoner, and there's a child, and the 3 of them need this sort of medication. You need to choose one person. What would you do? And I sat there and I froze. I didn't know what to say. And hold up, I didn't freeze because I didn't study laws or ethics before this lecture. I froze because of how I studied. A-levels always train you to look for what's the answer. You've got question, you've got answer, you've got endless past papers, and you've been at it for years. But pharmacy school asks you a very different question and a totally different skill. What would you do? And that's a muscle you haven't trained for years. You're probably just unlocking it right now. What would you do is like uncertainty, consequences, real people, patient. And you genuinely can't memorize your way through these questions. You have to use critical thinking. So you're probably asking me, okay, so what do I do with this information? Here's what you actually do. At the end of each lecture, write a question in your notes where you say, what would I do if? And create a clinical scenario. You can create it either searching on the internet or prompting an AI, but just create a scenario and try to think your way through it. And this way you're training that new muscle, the judgment muscle. And you're actually learning deeply because you're doing a scenario. But then you're asking me, how do I choose what's worth studying deeply? And I'll tell you in a second. The volume isn't the problem. Undifferentiated volume is. Okay, what does that mean? During 1st year, I had a phase. During the fundamentals module, I was memorizing everything I could possibly see. Whether it was chemical molecules, or was the names of bacteria, or the names of enzymes, I was memorizing everything. And then my brain started to explode. I broke down. I can't do this. My brain is in the hard drive. What am I doing? It's not hard, but I was approaching it in the wrong way. It will never work if I approach it like that. Memory is built by retrieval and meaning. Your brain keeps things when you use them and connect them to something. Content you memorize flat and not differentiated decays. You don't remember it because you didn't connect it to something. And here's the truth hiding under all of this. In pharmacy, there's things that you're going to memorize deeply, you need to know fundamentally, it's essential, and there's things that you need to understand because you can look it up. There's sources like the BNF, NICE guidelines. In an actual exam, they will ask you to look these things up and give them the answer. That's literally a clinical skill you'll be using every day in practice, and you're building it throughout your degree. So, every lecture, do I need to know this cold, or can I look this up? And it's worth asking your tutor as well. So this is the question I promised you. Do I need to understand this deeply, or do I need to know it exists and I can look it up? And this is how you physically split your topics into understanding and memorizing and applying. So you split it in all 3. But the deep understanding pile has a catch. You need to be wrong to actually understand it. Being wrong now is the training. And this brings me back to when I froze on that ethical question. Someone answered it and they were wrong. The tutor didn't just move on. They stood there and explained why they were wrong and explained the laws and the ethics behind all of this and how you can actually make a decision about this. And the system's put in place to actually make decisions like these. I bet you the person who got this wrong will remember the lecture for the rest of their life because they put their hand up and they got it wrong. If that ever comes up on an exam, they've got it in their head. I remember when I was wrong that day and it was corrected to this. This doesn't just apply to ethics, it applies to everything. Chemistry, biology, pharmacology, whatever module you do. This is where I realized my silence isn't protecting me from being embarrassed. It is actually putting me at a disadvantage. I'm not learning deeply enough. Coming out of A-levels, you've been trained to fear being wrong. If you make a mistake, you've lost marks. In the real world, where you're actually learning to be a pharmacist, it's not a disadvantage. You're actually learning in the lectures. And it's better to be wrong in the lectures than in the actual exam. You might be uncomfortable trying to be wrong for the first week, but the more you try it, the more you be comfortable with it, and the more you'll understand you're actually learning way more. And I urge you that every lecture, ask a question you think is stupid. It probably isn't stupid, you just think it is. And if you do that, you'll actually learn more. And that freeze I had, it doesn't happen anymore because I trained myself to stop fearing being wrong. So back to the person asking me about the systems. The system doesn't matter as much as you actually think. What matters is picking one system, sticking to it, and stop optimizing. So whether it's flashcards or question and answer, whatever system you decide to pick, there's tons of videos on the internet and you can pick one of them. Just stick to it and stop changing it. And stop optimizing it, just stick to it. What you actually need to do is do the starter kit I told you about. Clinical scenario, what would I do if? Be wrong and try to connect everything you learn. Try to apply it when you're learning. You don't have to have it all figured out before you start. I didn't, I'm still figuring it out. But if you walk in knowing what you're becoming and you've got your first move for week 1, you're already ahead of me when I started. You're going to be okay.